Just take a quick look around you right now. Actually, you know what? Just look at the phone that's probably in your hand or on your desk. We're about to unpack the hidden story behind that little device, and I promise it's a story that's going to change how you see a lot of things. Okay, let's dive right in.
Think about it. That smartphone you're holding, it's literally powered by cobalt from the Congo. The battery inside, it's probably got lithium from Zimbabwe. And the copper in the charger you plug in every night, yep, that's from Zambia. It's not just tech either. The gold in your jewelry, the cocoa in your chocolate, chances are it's from places like Mali and the Ivory Coast. The point is, our entire modern lives are built on top of the absolutely immense natural wealth of the African continent.
And this brings us to a massive paradox, one that has baffled people for decades. How is it that the continent providing the feast for the rest of the world is often the only one going to bed hungry? Well, here's the thing. This isn't really a story about poverty. It's a story about theft. A huge, systematic, and, believe it or not, perfectly legal theft that's written into international contracts and protected by corporations and courts. So today we're going to break down exactly how this whole system works. We'll look at its smarter, more modern origins, the financial magic tricks that make it all happen, the devastating cycles of debt it creates, and, this is the important part, how a continent is finally starting to fight back for its own future.
To really get what's happening right now, in 2025, we've actually got to rewind a bit, back to the 80s and 90s. Because this was the moment that colonialism didn't die, it just evolved. It got smarter, a whole lot quieter, and, in a lot of ways, way more efficient.
I mean, the contrast is just night and day, right? Old-school colonialism was obvious. You sent in an army, you occupied the land, and you took what you wanted. It was bloody, it was expensive. The new model, which was pushed by big institutions like the World Bank and the IMF, was all about privatization. The sales pitch to African governments was so simple. Hey, your state-owned companies are corrupt and inefficient. Just sell your mines to these big, efficient foreign corporations, and you can just sit back and cash the royalty check.
And the result of that sales pitch? Well, you're looking at it. Today, something like 75% of Africa's major industrial mines are owned by foreign companies. So yeah, geographically the mine is in Africa, but economically, it's basically a colony of a corporation that's headquartered in London or Paris or Toronto. So how do they do it? How do these corporations pull out so much wealth while paying so little for it? Well, it all comes down to a few brilliant, and I gotta say, deeply cynical financial magic tricks. So, let's meet the magicians.
You've got these four absolute giants dominating the scene. Companies like Anglo-American in South Africa, the massive Swiss commodity trader Glencore in the DRC and Zambia, Canada's Barrick Gold, and the French energy behemoth Total Energies. And believe me, these are just a few of the key players in this enormous system.
Now, their number one tool is something called transfer pricing. It sounds really complicated and boring, but I promise you, the concept is incredibly simple. A big company sets up a branch in a tax haven, like Switzerland. Then it sells the resources from its African mine to its own Swiss branch at a ridiculously low price. And just like that, the profits magically vanish from Africa and reappear in a country where they'll pay almost zero tax on them.
Let's just walk through a real-world example so you can see it in action. Okay, so a company mines 1 ton of copper in Zambia. It costs them $4,000 to get it out of the ground. They then sell that copper to their own shell company in Switzerland for just $4,100. So back in Zambia, they declare a tiny profit of only $100 per ton and pay a few dollars in tax on it.
But, and here's the trick, the Swiss branch then sells that exact same ton of copper on the world market for its real price, which is $9,000. And boom, there it is. The actual profit of $4,900 is made in Switzerland, where the tax rate is basically nothing. The wealth comes from Zambian soil, but the profit gets booked in a European bank account.
Now, when you add up transfer pricing and a bunch of other related accounting tricks across the whole continent, Africa loses an estimated $50 to $80 billion every single year. That's money that should be building schools and hospitals and roads. It just vanishes.
So if you're a country and you can't collect taxes on your own natural wealth, what do? You borrow. You have to. And this is the moment where debt stops being just a consequence of the problem and starts being a weapon of control. The IMF does this thing called a debt sustainability analysis, and the source material we're looking at uses this incredible analogy for it. It's like a bank analyst telling a guy his finances are great because he's paying his loan on time, while completely ignoring the fact that the guy's roof is caving in and he desperately needs that money to fix it before his whole family gets crushed.
And this isn't just theoretical. The human cost is staggering.
Right now, 32 African nations spend more money paying back foreign creditors than they do on healthcare for their own people. 25 of them spend more on debt than on education. Environmental agencies get their budgets gutted, leaving them totally powerless to monitor the very companies causing the pollution.
And all of this creates a devastating doom loop. A country is drowning in debt, so it can't afford to invest in protecting itself from climate change. Then a disaster hits, a flood, a drought. The country is desperate for cash, so it's forced to sell off its future mineral rights for pennies on the dollar to the very same corporations whose tax dodging created the debt crisis in the first place. It's a trap.
But the story doesn't end in that doom loop, because something is changing, something big. The years 2024 and 2025 have become what some are calling the years of no. For the first time in a very long time, African governments are standing up, looking the system in the eye and saying, enough. The game is over.
Just look at what went down in Mali. The new government passed a law to increase its share in a giant gold mine run by the Canadian company Barrick Gold. Barrick basically said, no thanks, we have an old contract. So, in the middle of 2025, Mali just seized the mine, arrested employees, and stopped all exports. By November, the corporate giant had completely caved, paying a $430 million settlement and agreeing to the new terms. The Western giant actually knelt.
And then you have the DRC, which, remember, produces 70% of the world's cobalt. In 2025, with prices for cobalt in the gutter, the government did something that was previously unthinkable. It banned the export of raw cobalt, period. If companies like Glencore wanted to sell Congolese cobalt anymore, they would have to build refineries inside the Congo first. They'd have to add value and create jobs there.
Zambia took a different, maybe even smarter route. It created its own state-backed metals trading company. So instead of just digging up raw copper and selling it cheap, Zambia is now trading its own finished metal on the global market. It's capturing way more of the value chain under this new banner of partnership, not just pure exploitation.
So, all of this fighting back raises the biggest question of all. What happens next? Where does this all go? The source material lays out 3 very different possible futures for the continent, and each one has some pretty profound consequences.
All right, scenario 1 is basically smart colonialism. This is where the West just adapts. It uses new technology, even more complicated financial tools to keep control. It might look like growth on paper, but the real wealth keeps flowing out. The second path is a managed transition. This is the future where nations like Zambia and the DRC succeed, forcing real partnerships and building up their own local industries. And then you have the third, most radical option, a complete transformation. We're talking mass nationalization, a full rejection of the Western financial system, a super high-risk path of short-term chaos for a shot at long-term economic independence.
And you should know, the West is already building the architecture for that first scenario. You've got projects like the US-backed Lobito Corridor Railway, which are basically just pipelines designed to suck resources directly from the mines to the ports, completely bypassing local economies. And then there's digital colonialism, where Western tech firms use AI to map out Africa's geology. They own the data, and they essentially hold the keys to the continent's own treasure chest.
Which, of course, brings us right back to the phone in your hand. It's not just a piece of tech, is it? It's a piece of this land, this struggle, this entire history. It holds the cobalt from the Congo, the copper from Zambia. The system that built that phone is now being challenged, maybe for the first time in a real way. The only question left is, as this next chapter gets written, what part will all of us play in it?